All right, welcome once again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the beat and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. Though not today because it's sober October for Sam, and I had 3 hours of sleep. So if I have a drink, I'm gonna fall asleep. So I'm going to try and remain coherent as we get back to the fires of heaven.
Quick product placement. Cam Newton's washed up. Come get me, Oikos. This stuff is delicious.
All right, well, I got coffee. Yeah, I got a nicotine buzz, so let's get to the ladies. Um, we'll see how far we get through here, but I kind of feel like it'll flow pretty quickly, because these next several chapters, in hindsight, I like the girls' storyline better. One, knowing where it's going, and two, being able to step back and kind of see the bigger picture in that it's constructed very well, just from a literary standpoint, from an objective literary standpoint, and these several chapters here flow together very smoothly and are a uh, coherent story. It's one of those points in the book where if you're reading it for the first time and you get to chapter 33, page 530, A Question of Crimson, if you get to this chapter at that point in the night where you say, okay, I'm just going to read one more, you're screwed because you're going to be up till 3 a.m. Because you're going to keep going. And it starts with Nyneave, who's always a lot of fun from her POV. Because probably more than any other character we get inside the head of, she rationalizes. And it's just fun on the surface, but then when you go a little deeper, it really shows you the character of Nyneave and where she's strong and powerful, but also where she's incredibly flawed.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I would like to point out here, of course, we don't get their point of view as we've kind of complained about before, but
mhm.
there might be a little bit of passive aggressive revenge on Tom's part with with some of this.
Yeah, because she has not been very pleasant um, of late, and and he knows his level of skill. She doesn't really, but I mean, he wouldn't be doing it, and he wouldn't be cutting it, haha, pun, cutting it as close as he is if he wasn't sure that he could do this no problem, and that she's not in any danger. Um, but he does get a little snarky, especially at the end when he says something to the effect of, "Oh, so I guess you don't want me to do the part where I'm blindfolded too." Um, yeah, yeah. Uh, this is also probably one of those times where we're supposed to scold Jordan for being problematic, uh, because she's being a feminine woman, where you see inside her head that she's scandalized and mad about the dress, but you can tell she also kind of wants to wear it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which in again, Jordan doing more than one thing in a scene, so we're getting that part of Nyneave. Um, we also get that she's still pining after Lan because she thinks at one point something along the lines of, maybe she could wear it for him, but certainly not in public. But he's also setting up a sharp and amusing contrast with what's to come, because Birgit, she wants her own dress when we get to that point, and it helps set up that contrast between the two of them, especially. Well, we'll see if we get there with the kind of the culmination of their tension, if you know what I mean. Um, keep being along, and then we get the. I kind of like this element where, because Elayne's not really in her arena yet for a while, that being, the game of houses and the palace and all that, you can kind of forget that she's on a level with Egwene and Nyneave, because Nyneave has talent with a capital T for healing. Egwene has her dreaming, and they're both incredibly powerful just in raw power. And
Well,
now Elayne gets her own talent.
we've all had this experience in tabletop gaming or via uh, Google Meetouts or whatever, where you make that forestry character, ranger, everything, and everything city adventure for the next 10 levels.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, well, I'll just draw my sword, I guess, again. And this is kind of where Elayne is.
Yeah. But then because of the odd set of circumstances that bring them an Adam, she realizes she can figure out how it works, which means she has a talent for making ter'angreal, which hasn't been around pretty much since the breaking, or at least since the Trolloc Wars. So 2,000 years, no one's been able to figure out how to do this. Okay. So I don't
Well,
want to.
a lot of complaints about Jordan is everything so serendipitous in its coming up, but he does have his little out. It's the pattern straining to write itself.
Well, but it's not. It's not contrived coincidence. So a hallmark of the terrible writing that we get today is they're they're not writing a story, they're writing a set of scenes, like I've been complaining about the last couple of weeks with Jar Jar Abrams and Bad Reboot, that they purposely make TV and movies that are like a trailer because they're trying to trick your brain so that it turns off and you just sit there and drool and eat popcorn and watch the show. Don't think, just consume content. Well, the way you do that is you don't really have a plot. You have a series of contrivances that this just so happened to be here so that the protagonist could go on to the next scene, right? And there's no depth there. But yes, it is a bit of a coincidence that she found an Adam, but it's not a contrivance because it makes sense that what's her name? The elephant keeper.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense that she would be there. Um and we've, in fact, again, he sets things up. We've already seen in the last book how scattered the Sanshin became after Falm, and that I mean, that was the whole point of oh, what's her name? I'm brain farting on Doobie Doobie Doo's girl.
A Geonin.
Uh, yeah, that's her whole point. That's why she's there, is she's trying to find other Sanchons, specifically Soldam, who got separated when the fleet fled. And so it makes sense that there are plenty of others who got separated, and uh, an elephant is going to freak the heck out of uh, the normies because they don't exist here in this Western Europe based area. So she joins up with the menagerie because she needs a safe place for both her and her animals, who she's not going to abandon. Now, it is a bit of a borderline contrivance that she happened to have a dom and that she handed them over. How did she end up with those?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's also Jordan uses it as a way to establish more depth, because we kind of skimmed over that scene, but in that scene where she's gotten to where she trusts them enough to hand over these Adam, they ask her how she got them and she won't say. So there's some sketchiness there. There's some additional depth there to her and some mystery. Uh, Jordan doesn't just have things happen. Now, he's not going to explain everything because you can't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your point of view, the reader's point of view, you know, the real life you observing the world, and then of course the characters, he writes from their point of view and they can't know everything. So sometimes it gets frustrating because he'll leave uh, a thread that you might consider a plot hole, but really it's just, no, this thing's not going to be resolved. It's not going to be explained. He's going to resolve the major ones, but he's going to leave a lot of mysteries out there that you're going to have to speculate on. Uh, Including actually one I thought of last night for some reason out of the blue, when I was prepping. I think it's because of what happens here in a minute. It dawned on me all of a sudden that this is a reread thing, because you won't catch this necessarily until you go back and read it a second time. But when you read The Great Hunt for the second time, you'll have discovered that channelers from the Age of Legends can make themselves invisible. So why did Lanfear let herself be seen? Those couple of times where when they were tracking down um the Trollocs and they go through those abandoned villages. Remember, there's this scene where Uno sees someone and goes chasing after a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and the clear implication is that that is Lanfear and her Sindine guys. Why would she let herself be seen? Because I don't think that's a mistake. I think she let herself be seen on purpose, but why?
Arrogance.
Yeah. Well, maybe she didn't let herself be seen, but maybe she was seen just from pure
Mm-hmm.
arrogance.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe it's part of the game she's playing.
well, but also she's awesome in a lot of ways, but she's
Mm-hmm.
not known for her survival skills tracking, and Uno can't channel, so she can't feel him coming.
Mm-hmm.
And he is known for that kind of thing, even though he's a heavy cavalryman. And he could have just been peeking around and she just never saw him.
Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things that's kind of a tiny little thread there that connects and makes you go, hmm. And there's a lot of those. I mean, we've brought up some here and there as we go. Um, all right, so 545. This is an amusing scene that I was wondering if you had thoughts on. Um, so Val and Luca comes to eat dinner with them because He's trying to woo Nyneave. Uh, and when they go inside their wagon after dinner, um, Elayne says, "Really, you should not encourage him." Nynaeve planted her fists on her hips. Encourage him? The only way I could encourage him less would be to stab him. Sniffing for emphasis, she frowned at the lamps. Blah, 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 blah. Uh, Stubborn to a fault, the other woman refused to be diverted. I may be younger than you, but sometimes I think I know more of men than you ever will. For a man like Valen Luca, that coy little flight of yours tonight was only asking him to keep pursuing you. If you would snap his nose off the way you did the first day, he might give up. You don't tell him to stop. You do not even ask. You kept smiling at him, Nyneave. Oh, what is the man supposed to think? You haven't smiled at anyone in days. I'm trying to hold my temper, Nyneave muttered. Uh, there's a lot of layers there that I like. Um, for instance, that Nyneave doesn't dispute her claim that Elayne actually knows more of men than she does. Um, which makes sense. That if she was raised primarily by a father, then she's not going to learn the things that a mother tells a daughter as she grows older. I mean, she says early on that he taught me to track and fish and hunt like he
Well, and
would
as
the son he never had.
dealing with men, it would be in that fatherly diplomatic way,
Mm-hmm.
not in trying to attract someone way.
And then she goes into a profession that she's wholly focused on, and
Which rarely ever
um,
marries.
which rarely ever marries, as we find out when Miranda and Egwene are talking. And she has to deal with men from a position of authority that's kind of precariously balanced as they kind of go back and forth. And she's young and beautiful for the job. So she has to, double down on the obstinacy. So yeah, it's she doesn't, and it really makes sense looking back why she's so awkward with Lan and why the series sucks and I hate it.
Well, from a professional standpoint, I've had a lot of experience with this, maybe not young and beautiful, but much younger than my clients.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever there was anything controversial you wanted them to do, controversial in their eyes, not in
Mm-hmm.
your eyes, the age card was always pulled. Well, when you're my age or when you're this, or you'll understand. You just don't know because you're only 30 years old. Well, now that I'm 42 and most of my clients were 40 at that time, I still give the same advice. So, but that's the natural order of things. As soon as you wanted them to do something they didn't want to do, it was always age was used as a tool.
Oh no, I don't squat. I'm too old. My knees hurt.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's what we're trying to fix here. That's why you're doing it over a bench with no weight, because that's where we're gonna start.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as as a very easy and frequent example. Um, and you're in a position where you have to be diplomatic because it's the annoying thing about training is, I like the science, I hate the job, I hate the selling. So Nynaeve's in a position where she never had to be diplomatic. In fact, it would, in her eyes at least, it would probably hurt her position if she was diplomatic because it would make her seem weak.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm not done ranting about the show because it now that I brought it up, it pisses me off.
That's what got all this
It
started. So we might as
it's
well anytime it comes up.
it's another reason, and I don't think I talked about this when we were ranting about that. I guess it was the second to the last episode where she hopped in the sack with Lan. It's not just that she comes from a much more conservative, we might even call it prudish society,
Which they already set that up to not be the case in the first episode.
which they already said it to not be the case, but she has no idea what she's doing. Why is she going to go, right to the end when she's not even sure what first base is? Okay. And again, we're not allowed to say this, but now a guy is going to charge headlong and try and get to home, try and stretch that single into a home run because the
They
hormones
they
are flowing,
they
and
may hit home base before the girls rounded second.
that too, but that's not what I meant. But yes, that too. But women are going to be more reserved. They're going to want to be more certain of their partner. Uh, that's both psychology and biology. So
And
again, it
disclaimer: overlapping bell curves, blah blah blah.
blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But it undercuts her character. It undercuts who she is, and it weakens what. Now you don't have to make the romance take as long as it does in the books, but one of the reasons it's so impactful is because it takes 5 or 6 books before we get there. It it's a steady progression, and it's not just Jordan stringing the reader along, it's Nyneave trying to find herself, and also Lan coming to terms with allowing himself to be caught up in a relationship when all he's known and all he thinks about and all he wants or thought he wanted was this war that he can never win.
Well, and I think another important element is they were together long enough to develop a base, but now they've been apart for a very long time. And even up until this point, we will see more further apart and in life or death situations.
Yeah. I don't remember where exactly it was, if it was the last chapter, if it's coming up here, but one of her thoughts as Nynaeve is thinking is, the stubbornness of, she thinks about Lan and then thinks, well, I don't need him, obviously, but he would be a comfort. So even in this situation where it's just stressful and there's a lot of unknowns, she's still thinking about him and wanting him just for that comfort. And that's a huge step in an actual relationship, is that comfort that you have. You've reached a level of relationship when you can walk in while your partner's taking a shower because you got to take a dump. When you fart in front of your partner, it's serious. You go ahead and change that Facebook status to serious.
Yeah, it's not the first kiss, it's the first fart. Yeah.
uh we're also kind of setting up we're he's also kind of reinforcing what happened before with Elayne and Rand, and then setting up for when things escalate later. Because yes, Elayne is kind of haughty, but she's not wrong here. I mean, she's a teenage woman, a young woman. She is heir to a throne. She already would have been being talked to about potential suitors and matches because she would have had to.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's also the fact of the matter that sometimes it's always best to have the outside looking in.
Mm-hmm.
Coaches don't play, right?
Yep.
She is outside looking in, where Nynaeve would be the better voice watching her and Rand.
Yeah. All right. Moving along to going to the world of dreams. Okay. And this is, things escalate quickly here. There's a lot going on just in the last half of this chapter. So starting on 547, where she falls asleep, because Birgit shows up. Again, we get some depth there because Jordan doesn't give us unnecessary explanation. He trusts the reader to not be stupid, and not say, oh, look, a hole in the ground when we can clearly see there's a hole in the ground, frickin' Rings of Power. Um,
Okay, I guess you've been watching it like you said you weren't going to.
no, I haven't been watching it, but I've been watching a lot of clips of it from people talking
Uh,
about it. Um, so I've seen way more of it than I ever want to. But we know they've been doing this for a while. We get that both uh casually mentioned offhand and then inferred. So he's not going to have them stand here and talk about stuff they've already done, stuff they already know, just to clue the reader in. He's going to, grab the reader and jump into the middle of the action and trust them to get caught up. And middle of the action big time because we're going to go spy on some Forsaken. More specifically, we're going to go spy on Gideon, who's spying on some Forsaken. So extra layers there about who she is and who the Forsaken are, just in case, you didn't get it from the four in the little conspiracy arguing with each other. Samael in particular about not trusting that he has to be the one that's the bait. Um, I had a thought while I was skimming through this and getting ready, is that, and I've brought this up before as a great example of a strong female character of Sarah Connor,
mhm.
especially the difference between the two movies. That one of the reasons she's such a compelling character is because she's she's not perfect, she's not awesome, she's not the Terminator. You know, Arnold is the unstoppable killing machine, not her, but she's not going away and she's not going to stop fighting. We get a number of times that not just that Birgit is afraid of Moghidian, but she we get that fear because several times she's tries to impress upon the girls, you're scared, but you're not scared enough. You don't understand what she can do. And that's about to get reinforced here when she does it. Um, so she's not perfect, she's not fearless, she's not invincible, but she's not going to stop. As she says when we first meet her, yeah, I'm not supposed to do this, but I can't sit by while bad things are happening and do nothing. Um, even though it costs her pretty much the most important thing to her, really. Um, because well, let's get there. Um, but Jordan is again reminding you, reinforcing that this little conspiracy that I showed you in the prologue, it's still going on. It's still happening. Remember back to those things and keep this in mind when other things happen. Um, of talking openly about how we're gonna pull Rand's eye to you, even if it means someone close to him has to die, obviously at your hand. And then when he comes for you, we pounce and we capture him. Um, he also gives us a little more hints about circles,
Mhm.
the mechanics of the world that we haven't really learned yet, but he's kind of laying those foundations so that it's not a complete, new thing when it actually does come up. Um, and then uh, page 551. I like the way Malkavian reveals herself here. Just walks out just so casually. Uh, talking, and I get the impression that when she suddenly speaks, Grendel is devious, but not devious enough. I get the impression it's a very conversational tone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because she would not have revealed herself from everything we know about her, and from what we see here, she would not have revealed herself if she was not certain, not confident, but certain of victory here. And she certainly uh is on the cusp of victory here. Uh I like that Nyneave is clearly scared, but also very mad, cursing herself for getting caught, for taking such risks. But she has the wherewithal to uh lie to Malhidian even while being tortured,
Mm-hmm.
um, to say that Elayne ran off with a man. Um, and then Jordan gives us something we actually don't get a lot of, I feel like, which is the bad guys getting comeuppance. Uh, because we don't have a ton of prominent named people of the shadow that aren't Forsaken, and most of them go to the end. So it's nice when we do get a bad guy getting their just desserts, which Leandrid very much gets here.
Mm-hmm.
And he gives us that satisfaction because we've seen her for a long time now, and we've seen her being exceptionally bad. Uh and and not just bad in the sense of the light versus the dark, but just being a terrible person. Uh
Well, in a little bit of a not traditional twist, she gets her comeuppance by one of the other baddies,
mhm.
not because she was defeated by the good guys.
Yep. Yeah. And uh the good guys, I don't think they ever find out. They might. I can't remember. Uh we'll have to keep an eye on that when we get there. But she she's kind of a boogeyman, especially to the three girls, because I mean their whole storyline really was them setting out to hunt the Black Hajah that fled the tower, and Leandrin was leading them. And so Leandrin is kind of a boogeyman to them, and they still think about those that they weren't able to find and weren't able to deal with as, you know, potential threats around the corner, uh, that could catch them unawares. Uh, okay. And then we get to chapter 35, Ripped Away. Um, and I'm going to reiterate because it's so good, but page 562, when Nynaeve wakes up again, the reason she's such a compelling character is because she's human. I mean, she's a mess here. Uh, every time, really, just about every time we've seen her, she's been stubborn to a fault and strong-willed and or strong in the power. And now when she wakes up, she's in physical pain and she's racked with grief and guilt because of what she did. That she figures she just got very killed. And then even when the guys knock on the door and say, hey, naked lady just appeared. What's up with that? She's it almost increases the guilt. And no, not almost. It does increase the guilt because with a death, you at least have closure. It's all right, there's the pain of I can never make this right, but at least it's an end. Well, now there's no end. Now she has the object of her guilt there, and she's going to have to make up for it. She's going to feel compelled to, to do something about it to make up for her all of her flaws that she sees having led to this. Um, zippity zipping along. Do you have any problems with Elayne knowing how to bond a warder?
Didn't she say she watched it?
Yeah, she watched it done a couple of times.
Yeah, that made me not. I mean, that's a simple answer. I
Yeah, I
mean,
didn't think
she
so.
is quick with the flows, and it is considered a relatively simple flow as
Hmm.
these things go. It's
And
one they
as
keep secret, and she happened to see it.
yeah, well, and it's not unknown either because as Birgit is going to say when she relates the story of the accepted who bonded the day before she was supposed to be tested for Aes Sedai. So it has happened before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not unknown that an accepted could learn the weave. So he reinforces that. Um, okay. Nyneave is an insecure mess. Um, all right, so chapter 36. I really like the exchange here with, and this helps some of our criticism because it's not a point of view for Thom, but we at least get to see more of them. And so much of the girl's story, it's like, hey, where'd Thom go? Where'd Thom and Juilin go? And we get a lengthy exchange here to kind of remind us, especially Thom, remind us why we liked him in the first place. Um, with their talking about Nyneave and how they're clearly concerned.
And his dusty boots and guitar and long trench coat.
Yeah, yeah.
I just love ruining your mood every time you get into a section. It's...
The way he talks here reinforces who he is. Remember way back, um, yeah, way back in the Eye of the World, when they get to good old Basil Gill, and he's telling them that that he won't believe that Thom's dead unless he sees a body. And is telling a little bit about them. And I believe that's when you find out that he used to be a court bard. And uh and Gil says something to the effect of, do you think all gleemen are so full of themselves? Well, I guess some of them are, but Thom takes it to another level. He's he 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 was played like you know, uh, the man with no name out of a Western is how he was done in the show, which makes no freaking sense and is totally out of character. One of the uh, fun things about Thom is that he is so haughty, but he also kind of does the Jimmy Johnson of he gets to talk the talk because he can walk the walk.
Mm-hmm.
And we get that in this conversation. Um and then we get the more down to earth Juilin. I knew a woman who behaved like that once. Blah 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 blah. Then she hanged herself. Ooh, thanks for bringing it down. Um da, 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 da. Okay, yeah, here we go. So 575 is where I was skipping to now.
No, you can't cut off
No,
with
not
Thom
yet.
saying, give him talking about getting men out of a funk.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Give him a
yeah.
swift kick, or else get him drunk and get him a never mind.
Yep, that'll do it. But he's not volunteering to uh dangle Nyneave off of his knee, so maybe Julian can. No thanks. Um so when Birgit wakes up, uh it Jordan very quickly reinforces who she is, but goes even deeper with her character because we see so much more of her here than we have elsewhere. Um, uh, Down at the bottom, she scrubbed angrily at her eyes, muttering, "I do not cry. I never cry. I remember that. The light helped me. I never cry." Um, but when she first wakes up, she's perfectly calm and it's just, where is this place? Wake up. This is not Teleron Riyadh. Um, so she's calm, she's evaluating things, but I mean, we've talked about this before. This is because in this form, in this state, she remembers her past lives. So she's very much like Matt, that not only does she have the physical ability, but she has the mental experience and wisdom and the calm certitude that comes with that times 100, maybe 1,000. Who knows how many lives she's had? So many that it all kind of runs together for her, basically. So she's that, but this is something she's never experienced before and probably never even contemplated. I think at one point she says she didn't even know it could be done to be ripped out of the world of dreams uh physically like she was. Who knows how the heck Malgideon did that. Uh I kind of feel like that's a special secret of hers. Um because she knows the world of dreams so well, she considers it hers.
Mm-hmm.
It's where she likes to hide, it's where she likes to do stuff. I feel like that is something she probably figured out on her own.
Knowing the heroes are there.
Mm-hmm. And just immersing herself in it so much that she would be able to figure it out. Uh, or maybe it was something she purposely figured out when uh, Birgit mentions back when we first, shortly after we meet her, that um, Moghidian knew who she was in the Age of Legends somehow. And again, I have to think it's her knowledge of the world of dreams that Moghidian knew that was Birgit, even though Birgit didn't, because she was just in another life. She was just
Mm-hmm.
had been spun out as another hero, and she promised revenge and told her that she would hurt her uh, uh, to the core. And this is it that and she says over and over when she's talking about her past lives and specifically about the adventures her and Guide will have, that whatever else they're always together. Whatever else happens when they get spun out in their lives, in their previous lives, they're always together. And as she says here, she could live with him not loving her. And you got to
Mm-hmm.
get the impression that they're not always lovers, but they're always needed by each other. And that the thought that she can't be there when he needs her just completely wrecks her. So she turns into a sobbing ball of tears. So Jordan gives us the hero of legend and then shows us her at her most vulnerable. And then she sucks it up and goes back to being the hero of legend, even if she's, still kind of teetering on the emotional edge there, because that's who she is. It's all right, well, this is where I am and this is who I am now, so I need to do it. Uh, as she says to um Elayne here at the end of their conversation is if I'm going to be your warder, then I'm going to be your warder. And that means, you know, not only do I protect you physically, but I protect you from yourself when you're pushing yourself too hard. So she slips into the role right away. And then we get on 578, we get her sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's going to make her so fun later on when other stuff happens that Elayne clearly doesn't get. Da, 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 da. Okay. And then at the end of the chapter, we get her showing off, which is cool. Of I like the self-assurance, and Jordan expresses it by having her not really say that much. I mean, she just tells Val and Luca, I'm an archer, pretty man, and 100 crowns to your one, and then that's that. She doesn't continue to boast. She doesn't continue to talk. She says who and what she is, and then it's all right, let's go. Uh, no talking, no posturing, and then when he comes out with the quiver and bow, she just takes it and gets right to business and doesn't bother talking to him anymore. She just shows what she can do after sneering at the quality of his equipment.
Yeah. It's kind of done right, like you said. No boasting, no talking. These moments typically are the ones that annoy me, especially in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Legolas sliding down the trunk of the Oliphant, or again, Legolas surfing down the stairs on the shield while he's shooting
Mm-hmm.
things, and everybody goes woo, and I'm like, that was kind of. I almost said a
Yeah.
word that might get us banned, but
Those were some of the few moments from the movie that I really didn't like, and it's not a nitpick. That's just bad.
well, I mean, it's the woo moments. It even happened in the original Star Wars, the good Star
Mm-hmm.
Wars, but it happened a lot in the prequels where they did something cool and everybody goes woo, and even the person says woo. That's why I call it the woo moments. They go woohoo, and I'm like, yeah, that's not how a battle would be going. You'd be like, holy shit, I made it through that.
Yeah, the one that jumps out at me is in the Revenge of the Sith, where they're having their epic battle, and there's this pretty lengthy scene where um Anakin and Obi-Wan are spinning their lightsabers around and they never touch. It's like you're just standing there twirling and spinning your swords and they never even touch, and we're supposed to be impressed by that? It's silly. It's silly looking. Um, it works here because it's direct, and even though it is unrealistic, the splitting of the arrows, it's not overly ostentatious, and it's not, like she's blindfolded hanging upside down or some added element. It's no, it's just she does something unrealistic. That's enough. Why I don't need to, the Legolas sliding down on the shield being so silly. He already does these impressive superhuman shots with his bow. Why do you need to add this silly element to
Yeah,
it?
yeah. How would it have been less impressive if every step he had a new arrow nock shooting it, taking out, 12 on his
Hmm.
way down the stairs? That
Hmm.
would have still been impressive.
Yeah. I feel like they thought, well, he kind of did that at the end of Fellowship during the breaking of the Fellowship, when they were fighting the Uruk-hai. So we have to do something bigger. We have to go bigger. No, you just have to make it good.
Or just
Doesn't
do something
always have to
different.
be bigger. Or just do something different. All right. Well, that gets us to the end of that chapter. There's still several more, but we're kind of running out of time. So we can stop there, and if we have any spoiler things we want to talk about, and then finish up with the girls next time.
Yeah, I didn't take any notes on spoilers. Did you have anything particular you want to talk about?
I had something while I was prepping, but then I got sidetracked by the idiot dog who's too scared to go outside, but he wants to go outside. The neighbor's putting an addition on their house, and he does not like the construction noise. So the last 2 days, he will not go outside unless I put the leash on him and take him to the backyard.
Well, in lieu of spoilers, you just want to finish the girls then?
Okay, let's keep going then. Um,
Especially since I just looked ahead and I've got a meme for that.
yeah, there's not a ton of spoilery stuff here that isn't, you know, going to be resolved. That I think the only real, thing I had was the callback to, to Lanfear that kind of came out of my brain out of nowhere. Anyway, um, and then the chapter ends, as I said, with "Can I have a red dress too?" Um, that Buriet has, as she says later, sometimes it's fun to be looked at, but we're not allowed to say that because that makes us toxic.
Well, it's in her
Um,
it's her internalized patriarchy.
yeah. Well, you know what? It's good to move on because right here on page 587, right at the beginning of this chapter, uh, we get to, I thought it was a little farther down. We get to what I had alluded to earlier, which was the kind of the tension between Nyneave and Birgit, because so a big buzzword for feminist writing is that women have to have agency. When I first heard of the Bechdel test, I thought it was something that someone did ironically. Like, this is how you spot bad, you know, radical feminist influenced storytelling rather than just storytelling. And then I found out that, oh no, this is something people take seriously and they try and check these boxes. And a big buzzword is agency, that female characters have to have their own agency. They can't be influenced by a man. Um, well, agency is more complicated than that because we all have influences and we all have help to one degree or another. And
Well, it's
this
also
is,
funny because they pick and choose when it's agency and when
yes.
it's not. If a woman decides to seduce a man for her own will, they still consider that the patriarchy because she's seducing a man, and it's for his pleasure. But
Hmm.
realistically, there's a motive behind it that's all her own.
Hmm. Yeah, it's uh I've referenced this before. It's why I like that opening scene in the first Avengers movie where Black Widow is interrogating the guys who think they're interrogating her. And she's playing, you know, look at me, I'm a pretty coquette in a skimpy black dress and I'm all helpless. Oh no. She's using, well, uh as Birgit says, when Nyneave shows up and she pops into the world, when she first pops into the world of dreams, she's wearing the red dress. That's how Birgit knows about it. And she relates a story where she wore something very similar so that
Yeah, I was
she
just going
could
to bring that
distract
up,
the
but you got it.
guards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then also
Uh,
talks about how stupid Kane got as well. And it's when you talk about who's got power over who, it's
mhm.
quite simple. We have physical power, but when it comes to that kind of thing, men are very weak for the most part.
uh, Where she says here, if you're going to wear the dress, why cover it up? You are a woman. Why not be proud of it?
Which
You would,
which he was lauded in the 80s and 90s because
uh-huh.
that was 80s and 90s feminist thought.
Mm-hmm.
I am here, I am woman, hear me roar.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's completely flipped on its head. How dare you think of me as a woman? Treat me like a man. And I have trouble saying the word roar, just like everybody else
Roar.
in my family. My uncle Tom had a long ponytail, and when you asked him to say roar, he would say he or he'd say, Uncle Tom, what's a lion say? And he'd grab his ponytail and go, hoo, 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 hoo.
Uh, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this of why I like this one page here so much.
What page?
587.
Let me see.
So she goes from you are a woman, why not be proud of it to and if I wanted to lower the neck another inch, and if I said I wanted you to rid yourself of that inch, she snarled, showing teeth. What if I wanted to paint your face so Luca could have his fool? And if I stripped you out of it altogether and painted you from head to toe? A fine target you would make then. Every man inside 50 miles would come to see. To me, those two sentiments go together. That she doesn't want Nyneave wearing the dress out of some feeling of obligation to Birgit, to her. She wants her to do it because, gosh darn it, where's that strong, proud woman I first met and became friends with? Why are you being such a simp? Um, you know, where would you draw the line? You can't you can't throw yourself down at my feet and be so guilty over what happened to me when I chose to do this thing. Stop. This is where agency can be used well, appropriately. Where Birgit is saying, stop robbing me of my agency, of my choice. I chose to do this, and you're infantilizing me by taking all the blame on yourself, as
Mhm.
well as ruining yourself.
Well, and it's funny because it's annoying for a little while coming out of Nynaeve because yeah, the stubborn bitchiness was annoying, but this is even more annoying than that. But it is actually a really good, well written example of people's people's intuition to self gaslight after
Mm-hmm.
a traumatic event. And Nynaeve is self gaslighting. She's getting ahead of Birgit on her own guilt. I create this problem. I'm an idiot. I'm this. I'm that. I'm a coward. That's the big one in her mind. I'm a coward. And realistically, a lot of times that's taken advantage of by narcissistic people in relationships. But Brigitte is not the she's a good person. So she's trying to get her out of the funk.
Yeah, she recognizes what's happening here. Um, so um, at the very bottom, this must stop. When I look at you, you flinch. You run about waiting on me hand and foot, blah, 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 blah. I am neither monster nor invalid nor child, Nyneave. Which is all contradictory except it's not, because that's what's going on inside Nynaeve's head. It's, you're being completely irrational. You're treating me like all three of these things, which cannot go together. And it's not who you are, and it's weakening who I am to continue to act like that. And again, the being praised for feminist writing in the 80s and 90s, and now he's toxic and problematic, is the women get their own, and they have their own pride down at the halfway down 588. Have I mentioned fault? I see none. Only men and dim-witted girls take blame where there is none, and you are neither. Um, she's right though. That is a failing of men, and it is something that Jordan writes in Rand especially, but Perrin as well. It's something they both do. It's something Matt doesn't really do because he's got a different kind of personality. So he's not one of those, but it is a failing that men can have.
Mm-hmm.
And it is part of the protective nature. Also, I think part of the every man kind of wants to be the boss. And if you're the boss, then yeah, the buck does stop with you. But yeah, it doesn't always. You're not in control of everything. So
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on Matt. He does it. He just does it a little differently. He does have his
yeah,
own odd sense of honor
yeah, that's
when it
true.
comes to things. He puts himself in many situations that Matt would not normally want to be in because of that trait. It's just he presents it differently.
That's a good point. The very differently. The whole hero out of dark chapter,
He's more
jumping
of a
down to
try to
rescue
make the best
Aludra.
out of it. He's the guy
Yeah,
that believes he can be redeemed from whatever action he did, whereas Perrin and Rand tend to mope.
yeah, that's a good point. Um, and then down at the bottom, as they continue to talk, she gets to the point that I was making earlier of I thought you had more sense than to confuse fear with cowardice. Um, you could have fled Teleron Riyadh when Malkidian released you, but you stayed to fight. No fault or blame to you that you could not. Um, and she points out, I was equally as helpless. I saw you being tortured, and I couldn't do a darn thing about it. Um, and she's still mopey. Um, when we get to the end here, at the bottom of page 589, it you start to see a bit of Nynaeve's character returning. That uh, I think he kind of puts a good book into this conversation with Birgit saying, "I would like to like you again, whether you return the liking or not, but I cannot until you are yourself again. I could live with you, a milk-tongued, sniveling wretch, if that was what you were. I take people as they are, not as I would like them to be, or else I leave them. But that is not what you are, and I will not accept your reasons for playing at it." And then Nynaeve forced her jaws to unclench, forced her tone as smooth as she could make it. So I kind of feel like here, uh, at the end of the conversation, she's continuing to be whiny and guilt-ridden out of stubbornness. She's kind of reaching the point where you're wrong, but you're going to keep doing the thing that is wrong because you already started doing it, and that's better than admitting you were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I like that Birgit's way of continuing to try and draw her out to herself is to make her mad, because she knows that's who she is. She knows that's a major part of her. Um,
I do find it funny that Nynaeve is basically the Wheel of Time Hulk.
uh, and yeah, she's She-Hulk as She-Hulk should have been. Another stupid, crappy show. Okay. Um, and then we get to the end of the chapter and we meet an old friend.
Yep.
Face like a bloody queen, the one-eyed man muttered to himself. Burn me for a sheep-gutted farmer, but she's flaming well brave enough for a bloody queen. Goat Swallow. Good old Uno. I don't think we ever got to hear him curse once. All right. How much more do you want to keep going? Can we get to? Yeah.
I've got about 10 minutes.
Yeah. So there's still that I think that's a good place to stop, because that's where everything kind of shifts with with stuff happening and beginning to happen very quickly. Oh, I remember something I was going to talk about that actually leads right into what's about to happen. Is another hallmark of terrible writing that I'm seeing more and more is lack of consequences for the preferred characters. So there's such a moral bankruptcy with so many of the people who write and create media these days that they they create protagonists who are awful and then punish the bad guys just because they're the bad guys, and there isn't necessarily that connective tissue of an appropriate consequence for an action. That's really what Birgit and Nynaeve's argument is all about, is we both took actions and there were consequences. That's how life works. Nynaeve is about to do some more things here that are going to lead to consequences. Some of which she should have foreseen, some of which she couldn't have necessarily have foreseen. But you know, George R.R. Martin and Game of Thrones gets a lot of talk because of the consequences, because he's big on that. That's a major theme, especially in that first scene, that even though poor old Sean Bean, who always dies, is the only real noble character in that whole first season. Yeah, everything you're doing is good and noble and right, but there are still consequences, and it leads to you getting your head cut off. Sorry, spoilers for a 12-year-old show. Um, so there are consequences, and Jordan's big on that too. They just are oftentimes smaller, because it happens all along the way. That's part of his setup and payoff. Is there are consequences to the decisions that Nyneave and Elayne are making here with and Birgit, of all right, well, now you got ripped out of the world of dreams and almost killed. And now you've got Mulhidian on your trail and maybe knows where you are. And then on it goes, because they're going to continue to make decisions and there will continue to be consequences for those decisions. And appropriately so. I mean, not always, life isn't fair. So not everyone comes to justice. Not everyone gets their just desserts. And sometimes bad things happen to good people because life isn't fair. But there's still a consequence there, one way or another. All right, you looking up questions from comments from the last one?
No, that was gonna be the last thing. Although I did look through them. I don't it was mostly kind of just responses to what we said, but okay, meme for this time. This
Ooh.
one, or they're similar. Oh, this one. Or I was thinking of making one with the repeated assassins behind each other, the head. Uh, the circle, Moghedian, Birgit and Elayne, and then the sniper in the balcony that says Moghedian again. I'll think about it while I'm getting my teeth
Yeah.
ground down.
Yeah, have fun with that. Ouchie.
All right.
Um,
The comments, yeah. Talked about the Dreamwalkers, and he Scott says that brings up that the wise women frequently visit others' dreams. So now that, I mean, that's kind of a big task. You would have to take like a really random sample and just, because I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of Aiel, as we find out in these large overpowered battles coming up. But I don't know if it, I mean, I guess you could speculate that they would walk the dreams of their apprentices before they send them to write in. Uh, People being swept up in the pattern. Oh, Asmodian, he likens to Obi-Wan. Yeah, pretty much just agreeing with us on comments we made before. So, all right, no spoilers this time, really. We'll quickly get through that last part of the girls next time, and then we got Rand again.
yeah, that storyline, there's a lot that happens there, so we'll see how long it takes to finish up the girls. Oh yeah, there's only a couple more chapters. 3 more chapters to finish up the girls, but a lot happens there, so
Oh,
because we
this
get
is one where it might be beneficial to do the girls and then finish the girls, which comes up later
yeah.
because it kind of flows, and then we can do Rand and Matt in a two-parter, the
Yeah.
Karheim
Yeah.
battle and then the end of the book.
Yeah, we'll look at that and figure it out. I'll look jump forward and see how much more the girl's story there is to finish after that break.
Well, we meet
Because that
Galad and
might
then it
go
kind of
better.
cuts off.
Yeah.
And then we have exactly what he does for them.
Right. Yeah, we'll see if we can't smush all that together, because it probably would be a little better here at the end. Like Scott said, it's they're marathons to the end, and then it becomes a sprint. And I do wonder, to his point, how much of that was his military service, because so much of military at any level is hurry up and wait. You're waiting around, you're waiting around, you're waiting around, and then it's, oh gosh, stuff is happening and it's happening fast. Okay, it's done now.
Well, you see this in a lot of trades. I mean, look at cooking. You kind of prep everything and then it all comes together at the right time, or else you have one cold part and you have one, mushy part, and you've got the thing that tastes good. But if you did it all in separate parts and to completion, it would be not good.
Yeah. And the ends of his stories are where the action of it. It's kind of all action at the end. So
It's set up and deliver.
Yeah, it's gonna happen fast. So it'd be nice to keep all that together with finishing up what's happening around Karheen with Rand and Mat. So we'll get started on that next time.
All right. Anything else?
I got nothing.
All right. We'll see y'all Thursday with a few social topics. I've got a couple things. We've apparently made super COVID at Boston University.
Woohoo!
So that's awesome. 80% kill rate.
What's the worst that could happen? I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, what's the worst that could happen? Isn't that the definition of gain of function research, by the way? Yeah. All right. Well, we will talk to y'all later and we'll see y'all Thursday, if not Friday morning when it gets uploaded.
Later.